Chapter 61 Team List. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Amon's team has already decided on the candidates, and Alia submitted the list. Amon, Lain, Vidal, Romir, Binglan, Alia, Yenjin. The student-organized team still has an alternate spot, and there is no candidate for this spot in Amon's team. This list caused an uproar among the students, especially since Alia's name was also on it, which was very intriguing. Although Alia had already agreed to join Amon's side, she did not disband the team she had formed before and kept pretending to be actively preparing for the war. This caught the other three competitive teams off guard. In addition, some other people on the list are also surprising. Judging from their usual behavior and habits, it is difficult to believe that these people are actually members of the same team. Binglan has always maintained a cold appearance, keeps to herself and seldom communicates with others. The Rummel people hate dogs, and there is almost no student who doesn't want to beat him up. Lain and Vidal are normal, but what's interesting is that the two of them once teamed up to beat Romir. The name Yenjin is impressive, but the person has not appeared for a long time. As for Amon, his presence is extremely low. When seeing this name in a team with two noble heirs, Alia and Vidal, the first reaction of most people is, who is this? Is there such a person in the academy? On the training ground, Brady held the list given to him by Roy. There was no emotion or anger on his face. He whispered. I thought Vidal had given up, but I didn't expect that he would secretly play such a trick and get involved with that woman Arya. Does this mean that Marquis Fekris and Earl Iron Mountain intend to deepen their cooperation? That after Brady was slightly surprised, the first thing he thought about was not the outcome of the college game, but political matters. In fact, the student pool of Northland College is very good. If we can really integrate the strength of the whole school and form the strongest team, it may not be unable to compete with the 5 major element colleges. However, due to its special selection mechanism, internal friction is very serious. In addition, these captains who are from great nobles all have politics, interests, connections and other things in their minds. They do not have the determination to move forward, so it is difficult to succeed as a soul master. Achieve good results in competitions. Roy scratched the back of his head, looking a little confused. Are they serious? These people are strong, but they don't look like they can cooperate. I feel that they are not as good as Arya's original team. That he looked at the people around him and asked, have any of you seen them training together? I've seen it. The person who spoke was a young man in white. He is the oldest student in the academy and is also very strong. He was invited by Brady to be their sparring partner. Cangqiong, have you seen him? Roy looked suspicious. Cangqiong, who was wearing white clothes, had a strange smile on his face. I have seen Vidal and Lain team up to beat Rummel. Binglan once froze Rummel into a ball and threw it into the river. Alia seemed to have had a conflict with Rummel, but she failed to break his defense. Bateman suddenly whistled. If this can be considered a kind of training, then I have also participated in it, but one thing must be admitted, that guy Rummel's tortoise shell is really hard. Brady clapped his hands and said, that, although tacit understanding cannot be developed in a short period of time, it is undeniable that their individual strength is strong and should not be underestimated. Alia, that woman, will not do some meaningless things. Since she has chosen this team, if there are no political factors affecting it, it means that in her eyes, the individual combat capabilities of these people are enough to make up for the lack of cooperation among the members. Insufficient. Of course, we don't have to be too nervous, just do our best. In order to perform better in the trials, our training volume will increase by 50% in the future. Bateman lamented. Brady ignored the whines of the players and looked at Cangqiong. Senior, do you have any questions? Well, there is no big problem, but since the sparring time has increased, then I'll double the sparring fee. Brady said directly. Master. Cangqiong had a sincere smile on his face. The in-house selection competition is a grand event for the entire Northland College. In addition to the few teams that aim to win, there are other teams. Some want to show themselves in the trials so that they can develop better in the future, while others specifically work as sparring partners for others to earn money. Cangqiong belongs to the third type. He gathered several older students like him who were unable to compete because they were overaged to form a sparring team. Because they are generally older and stronger, they are the best partners for sparring and are very popular. Brady paid a hefty price to have them serve exclusively for him. At this time when people's hearts were floating and the atmosphere was noisy, a heroic girl wearing white clothes with red stripes, long fiery red hair, and dark red eyes came to the school gate. Looking at the long-lost campus gate, she took a deep breath and shouted, "I'm back. Everyone, do you miss me?" Some newly admitted students looked at this strange and beautiful face, and their hearts skipped a beat. They felt like they were in love. The old students who had been fortunate enough to communicate with Yen Jin all looked like they had seen a ghost when they saw her, and their hearts skipped a beat. At this moment, they remembered the horror of being dominated by lava and fists. A second-year student walked over and asked, "Hello, beautiful lady, are you also a student of the academy?" Yen Jin showed a simple smile. "Hey, you praised me for being beautiful. Not bad, you have good taste." She patted the boy's shoulder, "Looking like you are very smart." Although this reaction was completely different from what the boy expected, he was still happy in his heart, thinking there was a chance. "By the way, do you know which powerful students are there in the school? I want to communicate with them." Yen Jin asked before he could respond. It seems that this is a girl who works hard and likes to practice. With this idea in mind, the boy who approached smiled. "To be honest, my strength is also good. I am a regular member of a team in the internal selection competition of the academy. If you don't mind, I can also exchange my practice experience with you." He showed pride on his face. Being able to become a regular member of the team means that his strength must be better than that of ordinary students, and he is at the upper level among them. "You." Yen Jin glanced at him. She wanted to refuse, but then she thought that others had praised her beauty, and it seemed a bit disrespectful to refuse directly, so she nodded. 20 minutes later, on the training ground, rising heat, melting arena, and a boy lying on the ground with lifeless eyes. He was not injured, but was frightened by Yen Jin's terrible attack. At one point, he thought he would be melted like the ground under his feet. Some third-year students who were watching shook their heads and sighed. Taking the initiative to communicate with Yen Jin. How can this be so unreasonable? You know, she likes to fight with her classmates the most. Chapter 62 Our Front. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. On the roof of the teaching building, Amon sat on the guardrail without any image, with a faint smile on his face. Speaking of which, this is our first time to gather as a whole. In front of him, 6 team members were either standing or sitting on the ground, all looking at him quietly. Amon clapped his hands. "I am very happy to move forward with you all, but the atmosphere between a group cannot be so tense. How about everyone introduce themselves first?" He continued. "Let me start first. Amon, 19 years old, level 40. Auxiliary System War Soul Master. Vidal, 21 years old, level 38 Agility Attack System War Soul Master. Alia, 22 years old, level 38 Strong Attack System War Soul Master. Binglan, 16 years old, level 35 Control System War Soul Master. Rummel, 23 years old, level 44 Defense System War Soul Master. Even if it is a very normal self-introduction, when it comes from Rummel's mouth, people have the urge to punch him in the face. Lei Yin, 13 years old, 31st level Agility Attack War Soul Master. Lei Yin's age and level caused everyone to marvel. Alia looked at him frequently. For the first time, she felt the gap between her talent and others so intuitively. Yen Jin, 14 years old, 40th level Strong Attack War Soul Master. She was promoted to another level. Yen Jin's innate soul power is level 8, and the first 3 soul rings are absorbed by leaps and bounds. Each leap and bound absorption allows her to increase her level a lot, saving a lot of practice time, and high-quality soul rings not only bring additional soul power, but also increase qualifications. Her cultivation qualifications are no worse than those with full innate soul power. In addition, the very suitable practice environment and Walter's resource support at all costs are also very important factors. But Walter is not teaching an apprentice. He is raising Yen Jin as a daughter. Amon thought to himself. Everyone was scared by her, and Bing Lan's expressionless face was also extremely surprised and horrified. Rummel opened his mouth exaggeratedly. How is this possible? He, you must be shocked. Yan Jin smiled foolishly, with his hands on his waist proudly. Amon raised his right hand, stroked his monocle, jumped off the railing, and said softly. Maybe you are not familiar with each other, maybe there is no tacit understanding between us, and it is difficult to have good cooperation on the field. This is also the only thing that Alia and Vidal are worried about. Hearing this, they frowned and looked a little heavy. Amon paused, ignored the heavy look on their faces, and continued with a smile. But this is not a problem. You just need to remember, there is no opponent in front of us. He took off his glasses and flicked his hair. The selection competition in the academy started as scheduled. The main purpose of the selection competition is to select the strongest team to represent the academy to participate in the elite competition of advanced soul masters across the continent. Therefore, the competition system does not have so many complicated arrangements. It is the simplest competition, and the winner advances. The competition venue was placed in the Duhan Arena of Beatty City. Not only the teachers and students of the academy, but also other residents in the city could go there to watch. This also made the selection competition no longer just a grand event for the academy, but also a grand event for the entire Beatty City. In the vast oval building, there were gray-white arenas in the center, and the surrounding audience seats spread outward and upward in a stepped manner. In the center of the back of the audience seats, the best view position was the VIP seat. 1. Was a man with small eyes, a hooked nose, thin eyebrows, thin sides, and bloodless lips. He looked gloomy. He was the master of the Beatty City Wuhuan Main Hall, Soul Saint Vargas. The other was a middle-aged man with a strong body, a resolute face, and short black hair. He was the principal of the Beatty Advanced Soul Master Academy, Soul Saint Zhong Yuming. Amon looked at the two in the waiting area for the players. He had met Vargas a few times when he went to the Wuhuan Hall to find Walter, and it was the first time he saw Principal Zhong Yuming. Yan Jin crossed her hands and rested them behind her head. She felt a little regretful that she couldn't beat up all the powerful students in the academy before the start of the selection competition to achieve the goal of dominating the academy. After Zhong Yuming and Vargas made standard speeches, they announced the official start of the competition. In the first game, Brady's seeded team, which was quite popular among the students, competed. Their opponents were not bad either. All of them were third-year students. When Brady's team showed their martial spirits, Yan Jin was happy. Lion, leopard, wolf, owl, pangolin, octopus, snake. Amon, look. She pointed at Brady and others who looked like orcs after being possessed by martial spirits. It's really interesting. Amon touched the bottom edge of his monocle. He didn't care about what happened on the field. What made him care was that in such an occasion, Zhong Yuming and Vargas, the two soul saints, were both there, but the mayor of Beatty City was absent. He discovered a long time ago that Beatty City seemed calm, but in fact there were undercurrents. Walter, one of the 4 platinum bishops of the Spirit Hall, has been hiding in the dark for more than 2 years, as the representative of the royal family's interests. The lord of the Northland city is secretive and rarely shows up. The eldest daughter of the largest noble in the Northland, the daughter of Marquis Fikris, Alia, frequently goes to the Spirit Hall, and Zhu Yoji, as a middle-level manager of the Northland College, is actually Walter's subordinate. No matter how you look at it, the Spirit Hall is infiltrating the Northland and is secretly fighting with the royal family. Amon had originally planned to use the vacant spots in the team to win over 1 or 2 northern nobles, but after discovering that old man Walter was making trouble, he gave up the idea. He was still a little afraid of this guy who was strong in Soul Douluo and good at calculating and arranging. By the way, Amon, is there a substitute spot in our team? Yan Jin suddenly asked. Yes. Amon nodded. The old man asked me to tell you that he wants this spot and hopes that you can cooperate with him to a certain extent. The condition is your 5th soul ring. He can help you hunt for up to 50,000 years. Yan Jin didn't know what Walter and Amon were planning, and she didn't want to figure it out, just simply passed on the message. 50,000-year soul ring, a condition that people can't refuse. Amon said with a smile, this is definitely a generous condition. You know, many title Douluo's ninth soul ring is only 60,000 or 70,000 years old. Needless to say, it is known that this is a preferential treatment given to him by Walter for Yan Jin's face. Suddenly, there was a commotion nearby, as if a few people had a little conflict. Vidal frowned, looked at Yan Jin, and then looked at the empty seat beside him, and had a vague premonition of something. When he looked over, as expected, Rommel was using his barrier martial spirit to form a sphere, wrapping himself up, and madly mocking the students of other teams. He put his hands in his pockets, raised his chin slightly, and his eyes revealed disdain and arrogance, with an extremely arrogant expression and asking for a beating. Even Vidal, his teammate, who was supposed to be in the same camp with Rommel, had the urge to beat him up. Chapter 63 Eliminate one person. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Although he also wanted to beat Romir, and although the relationship between them was not good, in this situation, Vidal had to stand on the side of one of his own. He walked over and asked, "What happened? This bastard actually dares to call our captain a turtle." The tall and thin man wearing a white-on-black school uniform had an angry look on his face. But Hussein's martial spirit is indeed a tortoise. Their family's symbol is also a tortoise shell. Rommel spread his hands, looking innocent. Vidal roughly guessed the development of the matter as soon as he heard it. Even if this might be the case, Hussein didn't mind others talking about his turtle spirit, which was the symbol of their family, but Rommel must have used a mocking tone and demeanor, and then a conflict arose. "Listen, don't you care about your team members?" Who the hell is he? Can he care about me?" Rommel picked his nose and flicked it at the tall and thin man standing in front of him. Vidal originally wanted to calm down the conflict. If it couldn't be settled, he would stand on Rommel's side and face it together. But when he heard what he said, he immediately wanted to stop caring about it and just fend for himself. Hussein, who was wearing a blue woolen coat and had been silent, quietly watching the development of the situation, said, "Harold, there's no need to talk to him. We'll find out on the field." "Stupid monkey, learn from our captain." "Oh, monkeys are impatient and turtles are calm. This is in line with your nature." Bang bang, the sound of broken glass was heard, cracks appeared on the barrier in front of Rommel, and a dagger was stuck on the barrier. "Ha!" Rommel raised his eyebrows, repaired the barrier calmly, and flicked the dagger away. "Just wait for me, I will kill you on the field." A girl with a beautiful face in black stared at him coldly. Rommel shook his head and left in a swaggering manner as if he didn't recognize his relatives. The winner was quickly decided on the field, and Brady's side won with an overwhelming advantage. "Let's go, it's our turn." Amon pinched the upper and lower edges of his monocle and said in a slightly brisk tone. The referee was Zhu Yoji, the first-year grade director, who was also the commentator. After looking at Amon, he looked away and said loudly, "The next game will be absolutely exciting. I didn't expect that the two seeded teams that were expected to win would meet so soon. One of them is headed by Hussein, but the other's captain is a bit unexpected. It's not the noble Marchioness Alia, it's not the elegant nobleman Vidal, but classmate Amon, who has always been unknown in the academy. How this game will unfold and who will win and lose in the end, let us wait and see." When the game started, Rommel put a thick barrier on himself, walked slowly to the front of the team, and gave his opponent the middle finger. Outstanding effect. Even a calm man like Hussein could not accept his repeated provocations and stared at him coldly. Amon used his soul bone skills to materialize his soul power, condensed it into a large chair, and sat on it, crossing his legs as if watching a show. Not only the spectators outside the field were shocked, but the opponent's teammates were also shocked. Amon's leisurely look showed that he did not take Hussein's 7 people seriously at all. Hussein could no longer hold back the anger in his heart, stared at Amon, and gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, you're fine." Rommel was stunned. He had rich provocation experience and was keenly aware that the other party's anger towards him had been greatly weakened, and more of it was transferred to Amon. His taunting of Hussein outside the ring was also a tactic of his own. Because he considers himself to be the one with the strongest defense in the team, he should bear the most attacks, but there is no way to force the opponent to attack him. so he deliberately provokes before and during the game to let the opponent focus more on himself, thereby reducing the pressure on his teammates. What he didn't expect was that his captain suddenly made such a move and directly took away the hatred. To express it in game terms, once again he felt that he was lacking in provocation. Amon, how to fight? Yan Jin turned his head and asked. Amon stroked his glasses, smiled and said, as you wish. I know. Yan Jin walked to Rummel, knocked on his barrier with his hand, and said with interest. This seems pretty good. Give me one too. Rummel replied unceremoniously, go away, who cares whether you live or die. Magma oozed from Yan Jing's hands and continued to spread, covering Rummel's entire spherical barrier. Humph, do you think this can break my defense? I still remember the ridiculous way you jumped up and punched my knee 2 years ago. Rummel's mouth felt as if it had been covered with honey, which was extra sweet. Yan Jin's third soul ring lit up, the flow of magma slowed down, the original red light gradually extinguished, and finally solidified into black rock. Her third soul skill can adjust the temperature of the martial soul. It can increase the temperature of the magma to a certain extent by consuming soul power, or it can also lower its temperature. Of course, the latter consumes much less. Rock Ember can't break Rummel's defense, but it doesn't mean it can't be trapped. She grabbed the stone ball and tossed it toward Hussein like a bowling ball. Hussein avoided the stone ball with alert eyes and watched it pass through the 7 people on his side and roll all the way to the bottom of the ring. He looked at the stone ball that had come off the stage in astonishment, somewhat confused. Originally, he thought it was some kind of tactic, but, now that it has come off the stage, it should be considered out, right? The audience outside the venue also stared at this scene in a daze, with a puzzled look on their faces. Zhu Yoji hesitated for a moment, and used his soul power to spread his voice, and did his job as a referee and commentator. As expected of the star player Yan Jin, who has been the focus of everyone's attention, he eliminated a contestant at the beginning of the game. She has cleared the obstacles on her offensive path. Next, how should the Hussein team deal with her offensive? Zhu Yoji's commentary made the audience outside the venue laugh. Vargas smiled, knowing that this was Walter's apprentice, and said to the dean of the Northland College beside him with a smile. The students of your college are really unique. Principal Zhong Yuming snorted coldly, a farce. Vidal, Alia, and Binglan on the field didn't know what to say for a moment. Although Rummel was indeed hated, he was still a teammate after all. What kind of operation was it to send him off the stage? They couldn't help but look at the captain, only to see that Amon was still smiling, and seemed to not care about Yanjin's behavior at all. Lain covered her face and said helplessly, Sister, you. Amon said casually, then I will do it casually. Yanjin replied with a smile. Hussein took a deep breath, puzzled by the mysterious behavior of his opponent, and didn't even know whether he should be angry. He stepped forward and said with some dissatisfaction, Are you really playing seriously? Or do you look down on me? Look down on you. Yanjin tilted his head and grinned, Who do you think you are? Chapter 64 Another Bug. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Although he could not understand Yan Jin's words, he could sense her arrogance and conceit from her attitude. Hussein was almost furious, and his face was completely gloomy. However, the gloom on his face did not last long, and was replaced by horror and shock. The rolling lava continued to surge, spread, and finally climbed upward, condensing limbs and facial features to form a 7-meter-tall giant, lava giant soldier. Although there was still a big gap from the 50 meters presented when killing the eyeless snake, this was performed by Yan Jin with her own strength. The lava giant looked at Hussein with his empty, dead, and soulless eyes, and a heavy sense of oppression suddenly came over him. For a moment, Hussein even felt that his heart skipped a beat. Yan Jin, who turned into a lava giant, began to run, speed up, and rush forward, relying only on her own soul power. She could not maintain this form for long. Get out of the way. Hussein shouted, and at the same time activated his martial soul. After the possession, a tortoise shell grew on his body, his head became shiny, and his skin was tinged with a hint of green. The second and third soul rings lit up at the same time, and a huge tortoise shell shadow enveloped Hussein. The lava giant's fist fell with a bang, smashing cracks on the tortoise shell. The girl in black went around from the side, scanning the giant's body, looking for a suitable place to cut. Harold held the long sword martial spirit, the second soul ring lit up, the sword body glowed with silver, and slashed at the calf fiercely. The sword blade cut through the giant's calf, but it was like drawing a knife to cut water, and the cut wound healed immediately after the sword body passed. The giant turned his empty eyes to Harold, kicked him away like a ball, and at the same time, the scattered magma left a large area of burns on his body at an extremely high temperature. There was no time to think about it. The black-clothed girl's dagger suddenly stretched out, like a poisonous snake that launched an attack and ejected, and stabbed the lava giant's chest fiercely, but there was a collision sound. Yan Jin changed the temperature of the magma, causing the magma in the lava giant's chest to solidify and turn into black rock to protect itself. Although there was no burning caused by the high temperature, it was harder. Attack his chest, the little devil is hiding in his chest. Hussein shouted, although the lava giant is huge, the only place that can accommodate a person is the torso. Yan Jin controlled the giant and slammed the tortoise shell with her elbow. She used her second soul skill, giving this impact a very high speed. The giant's arm was shaken by the recoil and turned into a ball of magma and scattered, and Hussein's tortoise shell was also shattered and turned into a halo of light and dissipated. Rummel, who turned the barrier into a long sword and broke the stone ball, walked out of the rock fragments cursing. Just seeing this scene, his original loud curse turned into a whisper. Yan Jin's shocking performance amazed everyone inside and outside the field, and then burst into thunderous shouts. Yan Jin! Yan Jin! Yan Jin! That the shouts came one after another, echoing in the fighting arena like a tide, and Zhu Yoji was even more flattering. Oh my god, Yan Jin showed her repressive power, breaking up the opponent's formation with her own strength. She also knocked down one of the opponent's players, making him lose the strength to fight again. On the field, after Hussein's shout, the other four also used their soul skills to attack Yan Jin, feeling that her soul power was rapidly decreasing and had reached the bottom. Yan Jin in the giant's body did not change her expression. She shouted in her heart. Amon, help me. Sitting on the gray chair made of soul power, Amon smiled and snapped his fingers. The different time worms in his body launched deception on different targets. Hussein's actions slowed down significantly. At the same time, he whispered, Lei-In. Lei-In understood and turned into a lightning and appeared in the battle circle. His third martial soul skill is assimilation with martial soul, which is elementalization when applied to elemental martial souls. In the plan made by Amon for them, this should be an ability that can only be obtained after breaking through to the seventh soul ring of Soul Saint. Under the rules of the world of Douluo, the higher the level of the soul ring, the more powerful the soul skills it can provide, and powerful abilities, if they appear on low-level soul rings, will also be weakened accordingly. Either the conditions for use are harsh and the restrictions are huge, or the effect is greatly reduced and becomes a useless existence. Elementalization is very suitable for martial soul true body in terms of strength and characteristics. Such an ability will naturally be greatly weakened when it appears on the third soul ring. Lei Yin's elementalization is neither immune to soul power attacks nor to physical attacks. In addition to turning him into thunder, it has no other additional effects. If such elementalization appears on the owners of other elemental martial souls, it will not be of much use at all. What kind of elementalization is it that cannot allow oneself to avoid damage? But Lei Yin's martial soul is thunder. After becoming an element, he can move in the form of thunder. It is a powerful skill comparable to Xiao Wu's teleport, and without teleport, it cannot be activated continuously, and the moving distance is limited to 5 meters, because his restrictions have been paid elsewhere. This is also considered a bug, but Amon is not very sure that this bug will be successfully blocked, and the decision is left to Lei Yin himself. In the end, Lei Yin won the bet. Because of Amon's deception, their thinking was slow, and Lei Yin's appearance was so unexpected that Hussein's 2 team members were easily knocked to the ground by him. When Lei Yin took action, Badal and Alia also reacted. One used the second soul skill to speed up, rushed to an opponent, and knocked him out with a palm. The other summoned a heavy book, and the first soul skill lit up, and a bright light ball emitting green light appeared above her. Starlight, turn into my arrow. That the light ball smashed forward like a falling meteor, knocking down an opponent. Feeling hopeless of victory, the black-clothed girl quietly touched Amon's side, ready to make him pay for his arrogance. A wall of ice suddenly appeared, like a natural moat between her and Amon, and Binglon walked to her expressionlessly. The black-clothed girl wanted to attack, but found that her body began to stiffen and gradually lost consciousness. A layer of frost climbed up from the ground along his legs without him noticing. Binglon put her hand on the black-clothed girl and turned her into an ice sculpture. Yan Jin's body emerged and separated from the lava giant's chest. Her right arm stretched back, and all the magma continued to shrink and gather. Finally, the original lava giant turned into a huge lava fist. Big fire, that the lava fist smashed down with an extremely terrifying force. Hussein's eyes were filled with fear, and he could only use all his strength to display his defensive skills. The turtle shell only lasted for a while before it was shattered, and the huge fist made of lava stopped at the moment it was about to hit him. Looking at the fiery red magma that was less than half a meter away from him and exuded a burning breath, Hussein swallowed his saliva and said in a hoarse voice, "I surrender." Chapter 65 Walter's Request. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The battle ended quickly. Yan Jin's attack was more ferocious than everyone expected. Even Amon was a little surprised. Although he has interacted with the Worm of Time in Yanjin's body and is aware of her progress in the past 2 years, she has never used the lava giant soldier method independently in the past. The audience was greatly surprised that the battle ended so neatly, especially the other students at Northland College, who all couldn't believe it. After all, Amon's opponents were not some miscellaneous team, but a team carefully formed by Hussein, a noble boy, with the goal of winning the championship. What's even more shocking is that they didn't try their best. It's hard to say even how much effort was used. He knocked one of his teammates off the ring from the very beginning. As the captain, Amon seemed to be watching the whole process. Layin, Vidal, Aliyah, and Binglon hardly fought, and they just solved their opponents in an instant. The only one who showed full power was Yan Jin, but what she showed was too powerful. It was hard to believe that this was the strength possessed by a soul master. Zhong Yiming showed a satisfied smile on his face. Not bad, but the cooperation is terrible. That I can't say that the cooperation on Amon's side is very bad. I can only say that it's not at all. It seems that everyone has solved the opponent independently, and the division of labor is clear, but in fact, the battlefield is divided, and everyone fights his own way. They were able to win so easily because, firstly, Rock Ember broke up the opponent's formation, and secondly, because of Amon's deception. Their thinking was unable to react and they were unable to support each other. Zhu Yoji announced the result of the game, and the audience was still immersed in the shock of Rock Ember turning into a giant and dominating the entire battle. After a brief silence, more enthusiastic applause and cheers broke out in the spirit fighting arena. Looking at Hussein, who was a little lost after the defeat, Brady laughed at himself. No wonder they have never been seen training together. With such strength, they can win easily without any cooperation. Boss. Boss. Roy was dumbfounded. That red-haired brat is too outrageous, right? She seems to be much stronger than 2 years ago. Yes, she is much stronger than 2 years ago. That annoying guy Rummel is no longer the same as in the past, who can only be beaten and cannot fight back. Qing Shuyang sighed. Although saying this may be a bit of a shock to you, the fact is that you have no chance of winning. Forget about you, even our group of overage seniors will be beaten up. Brady nodded and agreed with this point of view. The brilliance of Yan Jing is indeed dazzling, but Amon, who is hidden under the brilliance and always watching everything calmly, may be even more terrifying. Even if there is no chance of winning, I still want to see what kind of strength he has to be qualified to be the captain of such a team. You guys will support me, right? He asked, looking at his teammates. Of course, you are our boss. Roy replied without thinking. Bateman shrugged. You paid me when you recruited me. You are the boss, I do what you want. Brady had a smile on his face. Each team had only one game today. After the game, Amon left the soul fighting arena and left the remaining matters to Vidal. He came to Wuhuan Hall and found Walter. Mr. Walter, do you want an alternate spot in my team? Amon went straight to the topic without any greetings. Yes, you shouldn't refuse the conditions I gave, right? Although he was asking, there was a hint of undoubt in Walter's tone. Amon chuckled lightly, raised his right hand and adjusted his monocle. Of course, haven't we always gotten along very happily? Other than that, is there anything else that needs to be cooperated? Such conditions alone are not worth a 50,000-year-old soul ring. It is something that even soul saints and even contras are excited about. Walter was very satisfied with Amon's attitude and said with a smile, "In the following games, let Yen Jin stand out as much as possible and let her show off her talent and talents. In addition, let Arya also perform appropriately, but not too much." Amon showed an interesting expression and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. "I understand. The purpose of letting Yen Jin show off her talent is easy to guess. It is most likely to let others see her talent, recognize her talent, and prepare for joining Wuhuan Hall in the future, so as to plan for a better initial position. As far as getting Aliyah to behave appropriately is worth exploring. Walter's request is confusing. Appropriate performance, not too much. Are you worried that she will steal Yen Jin's limelight? Or are you worried that she is too pushy?" Amon chewed the meaning of this sentence in his heart, guessing Walter's purpose. He currently knew so little information that it was difficult to piece together the truth. Although the clones have spread to every corner of the North City, their status is generally low, and it is difficult to access the real secrets without showing their strength. They all show the power of the Soul Master and are easy to attract attention. At this stage, Amon mainly seeks stability and is unwilling to take risks. In addition, Marquis Fikris is hundreds of miles away, and his attitude, stance, and tendencies can only be inferred to a limited extent through Arya's behavior. Walter tapped the table with his index finger and suddenly said, "The specific location of the Dementor you want has been determined. The year is not clear, I just know that it is more than 10,000 years old. Go hunt for spirit rings after the selection is over, lest they move if you delay for too long, and it will be troublesome to find them later." There are still a few days left before the agreed month, but Amon estimated that his clones should have almost completed the level upgrade. Even if there are a few left who are procrastinating, it will not affect the overall situation, so he nodded in agreement. "What do you think of Yen Jin's fourth spirit ring?" Amon asked. Walter shook his head. He was really not good at this aspect of theory. "It's better for you to choose. Facts have proved that the development direction of the spirit ring you planned for her is very suitable for her. In this aspect, you are professional. Then let's go for the Flame King Dragon. Yen Jin has laid a good foundation. Next, it's time to strengthen her attack power. As for the age, about 10,000 years. Amon did not hesitate and directly gave the plan he had thought of long ago. 10,000 years. Walter was not embarrassed at all, but very happy. The higher the age of the spirit ring that Yen Jin needs, the greater her potential and the higher her future achievements. "How was her performance today?" Walter asked. "Very good. I think Vargas should bring you a detailed account of the battle later." Amon smiled. He did not ask why Walter did not go to watch the battle in person. Some things can be tacitly understood. Walter had long guessed what Amon had guessed, and knew that he knew some secrets, but there was no reason for the two to conflict at present. Yen Jin was the bond that maintained the harmony between the two of them. If it were not for Yen Jin, Amon's unexpected unstable factor, Walter would have taken action to control him long ago. A long time ago, he felt that this was not a simple character. Amon's calmness did not seem to be pretended, and he did not even have much offer himself. A Soul Douluo. Chapter 66 The Trial's End. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Amon and his team played their second match against a second-year team. This time, he did not attack. Yen Jin and Lei were the main attackers, and Aliyah cooperated with them. The battle ended in 2 or 3 moves, except for a small mistake on the field. Binglan accidentally froze Rummel into an ice sculpture. There were no other twists and turns. The third match happened to be a bye, and in the fourth match, which was the final, they met acquaintances, Brady and others from the same class. Amon had planned to condense a seat as usual, but he didn't expect Rummel to be one step ahead of him and use the barrier to create a wide seat. "Captain Amon, please sit down." Seeing his action, Amon was slightly stunned, and Vidal and Aliyah looked incredible. No way. The bad Rummel actually knows how to please people. Vidal said in surprise. Surprising. Alia said softly. What do you think I should do? Rummel picked his nose and squinted at them with a disdainful look. I've decided to follow the captain in the future. Amon smiled and sat naturally on the dark purple wide chair, leaning back against the backrest. Brady was not surprised or angry when he saw his posture, but just watched calmly. Zhu Yoji stood in the referee's seat and said a lot of warm-up words before announcing the official start of the game. To everyone's surprise, Brady's teammates left the ring at the first time. What do you mean? Vidal's eyes sank slightly. Brady smiled. I know we have lost this game and there is no need to fight at all, but I want to know the gap between you and me. He stared at Amon, with fighting spirit in his eyes. Although most of the time, Brady is a rational person who prioritizes the pros and cons and weighs the gains and losses, but he is also a young man, and he has hardly ever failed. He is arrogant and proud. He will naturally feel unwilling to be left behind by his peers in terms of overall team strength. Even if he loses, he wants to lose clearly. Give me a chance to fight you alone. His eyes are like a young lion about to challenge the Lion King. Hey, who do you think you are? Even I haven't dared to challenge Amon for a long time. Yen Jin stepped forward and blocked Brady. Amon raised his right hand, touching the upper and lower edges of his monocle with his index finger and thumb, and chuckled. Since you insist on asking, I will give you this opportunity. Yen Jin, step down. Oh, okay. Yen Jin nodded, then jumped off the ring from the side. The rest of the people looked at each other and left. Zhu Yoji's commentary also sounded. It seems that something unexpected happened on the ring. The players of the two teams left the stage one after another, leaving the stage to their respective captains. Is this going to decide the champion by a duel between the captains? Although it is a little inconsistent with the concept of team battle, the Academy has no rules that prohibit this. If both sides agree on this method, it seems feasible. Most of the audience were looking forward to Yen Jin's battle. Seeing this, they were slightly disappointed, but some people were more looking forward to it. After all, Amon has always been very mysterious. No one has seen him take action or show his martial spirit since the game started. After Vidal left, the barrier chair naturally dissipated. Amon stood up and looked at Brady's martial spirit possessed, turning into a half-beast image with a lion face and a human body. Brady, 38-level strong attack system War Soul Master. Amon, 40-level auxiliary system War Soul Master. Although Amon was standing there leisurely, without any sign of fighting, Brady did not dare to be careless. As soon as he came up, he used his strongest means, and the third soul skill was lit up. Amon's eyes were slightly condensed. In fact, he had already used the third soul skill, but the first soul skill had stolen all the expressiveness of the soul power, so it was completely invisible from the outside. Amon's third soul skill is a continuous skill. During the skill maintenance period, he can predict the opponent's upcoming skill 1 second in advance, and according to the level comparison between the two sides, he can see through the effects and loopholes of the opponent's skill. Under the effect of insight, Brady's upcoming soul skill was analyzed by him 1 second in advance. Amon calmly materialized his soul power, forming a gray translucent shield covering his whole body. Is that Rummel's barrier? Bateman in the audience was surprised. No, it shouldn't be, it's just a similar skill. No wonder Rummel joined their team. He should have learned the method of transforming and reshaping the barrier into a weapon from Amon. Cheng Shuyang analyzed with his chin in his hand. Brady opened his mouth, and invisible sound waves spewed out from his mouth. The ring was broken and dust flew wherever he passed. Lions roar, that the sound waves hit Amon's shield, causing layers of ripples. Amon just kept inputting soul power to make the shield thicker and stronger. His materialized soul power defense was naturally inferior to Rummel's barrier martial spirit. When facing the same attack, Rummel might only need to consume 1 unit of soul power to resist, while Amon might have to consume 5 or even 10 units of soul power to achieve the same effect, but it didn't matter. What Amon lacked the most was soul power. The more than 100 level 30-time bugs he carried on his body could continuously replenish him. Brady's Lion's Roar is also a continuous attack skill. As long as you keep inputting soul power, the sound waves will not stop, but until his soul power was exhausted, he could not make the shield in front of Amon have the slightest crack. Looking at Amon, who was still calm and smiling after blocking his strongest attack head-on, Brady's eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. This gap is so big that it makes people feel unreal. If Cangqiong is a raging volcano, people can see its violent power at a glance, then Amon is an endless sea, although calm, but there is no edge. Amon raised his right hand, snapped his fingers, and threw a fraud at the other party. Brady had already begun to doubt himself and his talent. His thinking was affected again, his expression began to dull, and his eyes lost focus. Amon raised his arm, stretched out his thumb and index finger, and gathered a small amount of soul power. Bang! A weak air bomb exploded in Brady's chest. He was hit by the air wave, stumbled backwards, and sat on the ground. The pain brought Brady back to his senses. He realized his current embarrassment, sighed, raised his right hand and shouted, "I give up." The audience applauded sparsely, but not enthusiastically. From the performance point of view, Amon's fight was not exciting and there was no passion at all. There was no sense of impact and shock when Yan Jin fought, nor the artistic sense of Lei Yin's showmanship. He just used the defense of soul power materialization and the huge total amount of soul power to crush the past, and his opponent will feel the powerlessness of not having the slightest chance of winning no matter how hard he struggles. Zhu Yoji announced the result of the game loudly. It seems that the winner has been decided. The team competition of the intra-school selection has ended here. Amon's team won. They will take this honor and represent our college to participate in the elite competition of advanced Soul Master colleges across the continent 1 year later. Now, let us give warm applause to the winner. Chapter 67 Soul-Dangling Mountains. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The Soul-Dangling Mountains are located at the junction of the Northland Province and the Fasno Province, and are the continuation of the Iron Heart Mountains to the south. This mountain area is not large, but it is surrounded by thick fog all year round, and is home to a series of soul beasts with strange shapes and characteristics, hence the name. Do the soul-catching ghosts live in the Soul-Dangling Mountains? Amon followed Walter slowly, walking on a stone-paved path. Yes, Manas is following them from a distance to ensure that they will not suddenly move and lose their tracks. Walter nodded in response. Manas is another Soul Emperor under Walter. He often acts with Korea and is deeply trusted by Walter. Why didn't you let Yanjin come with you this time? She also needs a soul ring. Maybe she can meet it on the way if she is lucky. Amon asked as he walked. Walter shook his head slightly. I believe in your vision. Since you said that the Flame King Dragon is the most suitable for her fourth soul ring, then choose the Flame King Dragon. And this kind of soul beast, or soul beasts with similar characteristics, will never appear in the Danghun Mountains. As for the reason, you will know when you get there. Not long after, they came to a village with few people, only dozens of households. The villagers looked at Amon with a bit of scrutiny and vigilance. Amon raised his right hand, adjusted his monocle, and whispered to himself, interesting. He found that there were no old people in the village, and most of them were young men and teenagers. The most important thing was that all the people here were soul masters. Although they hid well, they could not hide from the keen insight brought by Amon's third soul skill decryption scholar. In addition, the breath of these villagers made Amon feel faintly familiar, just like the three triplet soul master robbers who attacked him and Yan Jin on the way to Beatty City. A young man wearing a black suit with the word soul written on his clothes stepped forward and saluted Walter. Lord Walter, Lord Monraz told me before he left to lead the way for you. When do you plan to enter the forest? Walter nodded. Now, those soul-grabbing ghosts are quite troublesome. If it takes too long, Monraz might be in danger. Led by the young man in black, Walter and Amon walked towards the forest not far from the village. As the distance got closer, Amon felt something unusual. The water elements around him suddenly became dense, and there was a force similar to spiritual power mixed in it. The originally clear and normal mountains in front suddenly became blurred, hazy fog rose, and visibility dropped sharply. Amon took off his glasses, wiped them gently with silk, wiped off the water stains on the lenses, and put them on again. He said, "Indeed, the Flame King Dragon will not appear in such a place. The water elements here are too dense, which is the environment they hate the most." Walter smiled and said gently, "It's incredible, right? Obviously, the mountains are very clear from a distance, but once you get close, you will see a large area of fog, and all the scenery will become blurred." Amon nodded slightly. "It's a bit like some kind of natural formation. Of course, it may also be man-made." Walter showed surprise on his face, and he asked with some curiosity, "You actually know about formations? Even if it is based on people, the formation that gathers the power of everyone is not ordinary knowledge, and even fewer people know that the terrain can also be used to set up formations. If you have time, you can take time to go to the library of Northland College. As long as you are patient enough, you will always gain something." Amon replied with a smile. "Study. You should learn more while you are young. At my age, I don't have such a strong desire for knowledge." Walter sighed. The young man in black carefully took out a bamboo tube from his arms and opened the sealed lid. A black beetle flew out of it, making a slight buzzing sound. Although it was very weak, the beetle did emit a faint soul power fluctuation. The young man fed the beetle a black pill-shaped object. After the beetle was full, it stayed on his palm for a while, and then flew into the air. After circling for a few times, it flew slowly in one direction. "This way." The young man followed. Although the beetle did not fly fast, it also needed to run to keep up. With the use of soul power, the soul power fluctuations on the young man could no longer be hidden so perfectly, and the aura of the Soul King was revealed. Walter looked at Amon. "Do you need me to take you away?" Amon smiled with some ease. "I can still keep up with this level." As he spoke, he gathered his soul power to his feet, and through continuous short and powerful bursts, he increased his speed to a level slightly faster than the black-clothed youth, and caught up. Walter floated in the air, leaning forward slightly, and came to Amon's side silently. He glanced at Amon's way of rushing, and with his eyesight, he could naturally see some clues. "Very good soul power application skills. Your soul power control level is probably higher than the Soul Saint, and is not inferior to the average Soul Douluo." The three people moved forward very quickly, and Walter seemed to want to test Amon's level. Along the way, he not only did not take into account the person with the lowest soul power level in the team, but even secretly signaled the black-clothed youth to speed up. Amon followed the young man calmly. For him, the speed increase was nothing more than a slight increase in the output of soul power under his feet. As for the consumption, if it was a pure soul power competition, he could consume Walter to death. Walter didn't find it strange that Amon could keep up. This was within his expectations. However, the black-clothed young man showed some surprise in his eyes. For a normal soul master, his speed of rushing almost required full strength to keep up, and running at full strength was obviously impossible to last, and his demeanor would not be so relaxed. He is worthy of being the one who can make Lord Walter personally help hunt soul rings. He thought to himself. Not long after, the beetle's flying speed slowed down. After circling in the air for a while, it turned around and flew back, and then turned again. After several times in a row, it seemed to be a little confused and flew back to the young man's hand, with its wings drooping, motionless. The young man pointed the opening of the bamboo tube at the beetle, and the beetle crawled in obediently. He closed the lid and said to Walter, "Something is interfering with the judgment of the smell-seeking insect." Walter did not blame him, and said calmly, "Then look around. It may be that Monraz covered his tracks himself. It seems that it is not necessary." Amon pointed to the dense forest on the left and said. A middle-aged man in a black robe walked out of the dense forest. There were some bloodstains on his clothes, but there was no smell of blood. It should be covered up by him in some way. This is the person they are looking for, Monraz. Lord Walter. Monraz's voice was a little weak. "Sorry, the mission failed. Those ghosts are very cunning." Chapter 68 Dementors. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. What's the matter with your injury? Is it serious? Walter did not worry about why his mission failed, but first cared about Monoz's injury. It doesn't matter. I was following them well, but suddenly a group of black baboons came out of nowhere and started fighting with the Dementors. I was discovered in the chaos, so I temporarily evacuated. Later, when I went to look for traces of the Dementors again, I found that they had already been prepared to deal with me. Let the ordinary Dementors be revealed first. When I was following me, the Dementor leader sneaked up with a few elite Dementors and attacked me. Fortunately, my sixth soul skill can still be used normally and has not been affected by them, otherwise I might not be able to come back. Although Mtlnovel's tone was very calm, anyone could hear the danger in it. Dementors are not good at encounters, but if they target a prey with premeditation, they will be the most terrifying hunters. It's indeed cunning. Walter's face suddenly became serious, his eyes as sharp as a falcon about to fly down. Amon felt a sense of emptiness, as if he had lost something important, and then the world in his eyes suddenly stopped. It's like a sleeping person opening his eyes, feeling a little dazed for a moment. He can see, hear, and smell, but he just doesn't know how to react to what he perceives. He felt like his brain was rusty and it was difficult to think. A clear consciousness instantly took over his body. A time insect with a personality similar to its own body processed the received information and continuously transmitted the results to the brain through conscious interaction. Amon resumed his thinking. He raised his right hand, stroked his monocle, and said with great interest, "Is this the effect of fraud?" Interesting. What just caused Amon to think sluggishly was the active part of his soul skill scammer, deception. The Dementors had no intention of letting Mtlnovel go. They chased him and launched a secret attack. Amon beside him also became a target. They stole Amon's soul skill and applied it to Amon, since he decided to take the soul-destroying ghost as the target of obtaining the soul ring this time. Amon certainly had a relatively deep understanding of this kind of soul beast, and he had also made plans for various situations that he might encounter during this trip. Among them, it was naturally expected by Amon that his soul skills were stolen and turned against him. His first and third soul skills both affect himself, and only his second soul skill directly affects his opponent. If the soul Dementor stole his soul skill, the only one that could be used directly against him would be the second soul skill. Amon's countermeasure is to prepare in advance a time insect whose behavior and thinking methods are similar to his own body. After the body's thinking is affected, it takes over the body through spiritual connection. His eyes regained clarity and he shouted, "Be careful, the Dementors are coming." The expressions of the young man in black and Mtlnovel changed, and their original movements suddenly stagnated. They felt that their soul skills were being silenced one by one. A ball of flame flew from the dense forest, and the young man in black looked ugly, because this ball of flame was the most convenient soul skill he usually used. Amon stretched out his palm and materialized his soul power, and a light gray halo enveloped all four of his party. The flames flew to the gray barrier, causing ripples. The smile on Amon's face suddenly froze for a moment, and the barrier covering the four people only lasted for a while and then disappeared. Subconsciously, he reached out to his right eye, but in the middle of the action, he paused for a moment, and then pinched the orbit of his right eye. The monocle he had been wearing on his right eye also followed the barrier. Disappeared. Amon shrugged and said with a hint of helplessness, "Well, I have no choice. Even the soul bone skills have been stolen. It's up to you, Mr. Walter." When Amon encounters them now, it's like a low-sequence person on the thief path encounters a higher sequence being, or he encounters a group of people who are severely suppressed. Walter's expression was indifferent. The palm of his right hand was upward, the 5 fingers were naturally bent, and then, his 5 fingers suddenly closed in the middle. The surrounding trees seemed to have been cut by invisible blades, neatly broken into several sections, and the fractures were smooth and flat. Also cut apart were several soul Dementors that were the size of adults. Their bodies were dismembered without any resistance, and their fallen heads were still somewhat confused. Although all 3 soul skills were stolen, the passive improvement brought by the soul skills still existed. Amon was keenly aware that there were a large number of extremely thin threads that were difficult to see with the naked eye distributed around them. It was these threads that caused the scene just now. The death of their companions caused panic among the Dementors. They screamed one after another, and humanoid figures with long red hair ran among the trees further away. Mtlnovel's face was gloomy, and at the same time he felt a sense of fear in his heart. If Walter hadn't arrived in time, he would have died in the hands of the Dementors in a short time. Unexpectedly, they completed the siege of themselves quietly. A low and penetrating roar sounded. The Dementors calmed down and looked at the owner of the roar with some fear. A Dementor who was half taller than a normal person, with a thin build, a scar on his face, and a bone whip wrapped around his body, looked a bit old. Its eyes glowed with a blue light, looking at the four humans in front of it, eyes full of ferocity and brutality. Mano saw the leader of the soul-drawing ghosts, and the wound on his body was aching slightly. It was this 10,000-year soul beast that almost killed him. Beside the scar soul-drawing ghost, there were two soul-drawing ghosts of the same height, but stronger and larger. They roared intimidatingly at the four people. The scar soul-drawing ghost waved his hand, and the two followers stopped roaring and took a step back. The young man in black looked at this scene and was amazed. Their intelligence seems to be not low. Munoz whispered, "Old soul beasts can give birth to spiritual intelligence, not to mention soul-drawing ghosts, which are very close to humans." Walter gestured to Amon, "This is the goal of our trip. This guy is about 30,000 years old, maybe even more. What do you think? It looks pretty good. I am very satisfied." Amon replied with a smile. The scar leader pointed at Amon and made a strange sound of hawahu. His two followers nodded repeatedly, then stared at Amon, not daring to blink. "Are they discussing tactics?" Amon asked. "Who knows? Maybe after you absorb the spirit ring, you can try to communicate with them." Walter replied. Chapter 69 Silk Puppet. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Manas knew that he couldn't give the soul-stealing ghosts enough time, otherwise the probability of his high-level soul skills being stolen would continue to increase. As long as he tried enough, even the smallest probability would happen. He looked at Scarface, and a longbow appeared in his hand, accompanied by a yellowish halo, and the sixth soul ring lit up. After seeing his action, Scarface's head slightly back, his face slightly tilted, squinting at him, revealing a disdainful smile. It stretched out its hand and grabbed forward, 5 fingers clenched, and the dark red light on its hand flowed. Mana's soul ring dimmed, turned gray, and without light. He was horrified to find that his sixth soul skill had disappeared. "Be careful, this guy took my sixth soul skill," he reminded loudly. "Ha-hoo! Ha-hoo!" The surrounding soul-stealing ghosts howled excitedly and beat the ground with their hands, as if to cheer for the leader of their tribe. Scarface did not attack immediately, but spread his palm forward and made an inviting gesture to Amon. This made Walter, who wanted to take action, look interested and quietly watched the show. Seeing that Amon was unmoved, Scarface pointed at him, patted his left arm first, and then patted his right arm. Then he pointed at a female Dementor in the tribe and waved his hand proudly. Walter smiled strangely and said to Amon, "Left and right arms, beauty, is it trying to recruit you?" "I think so." Amon raised his right hand, paused slightly, and then pinched his eye sockets before putting it down. He probably guessed what was going on. Mano said that he was able to escape from the encirclement of Dementors because his sixth soul skill was still usable, which means that the previous Dementors could not easily steal his sixth soul skill. But Scarface's performance just now showed that he could do this easily. If Scarface had not deliberately let Munoz escape before, then something had strengthened Scarface's stealing ability. Amon knew that there were two main factors for the soul hunter to steal soul skills. One was the age of the soul hunter itself, and the other was the level and strength of the target soul skills. He speculated that there was another hidden factor, which was the soul hunter's understanding of the target soul skills. Amon guessed in his heart, the reason why Scarface was able to easily steal Mana's sixth soul skill was probably because it stole my third soul skill, Decryption Scholar. This allowed it to predict Mana's soul skills in advance and understand some of its effects and loopholes, so the possibility of successful theft was greatly increased. It realized the importance of my soul skill to it and was unwilling to let it go, but because the stolen skills were time-limited, it couldn't kill me, so it wanted me to be its subordinate. Heh, really interesting. Amon's mouth drew a smile. Seeing that Amon was unmoved, Scarface, who failed to lure, turned to coercion. It roared at Amon, revealing its sharp fangs, and its already ferocious face became even more ferocious. "Mr. Walter, are you going to just watch like this?" Amon asked. Walter had a smirk on his face. "I'm just waiting for your choice, aren't I?" Amon shrugged. "Which do you think I would choose, a 30,000-year soul ring or a subordinate of an orangutan?" Scarface felt Amon's contempt for him, and his eyes were burning with anger. He looked at Walter, knowing that he was the strongest of the four people on the opposite side, and his murderous intent was overflowing. He threw a fraud at Walter and kept insight turned on. Then, he stretched out his hand in the direction of Walter, but stole nothing. This made Scarface a little confused. He looked at his palm blankly, and for a moment he didn't understand why his innate skills that were always successful would fail. Even if the target of the theft was a human who was stronger than himself, he should be able to steal some low-level soul skills. It was the first time that he stole nothing like now. Walter made a move, with a white halo in his hand, and silk threads gathered and quickly passed forward. Scarface jumped back swiftly and dodged the attack. Where he was standing, a deep mark appeared on the ground, as if it had been cut by a blade. After several attempts, Scarface, who realized that he could not steal Walter's soul skills anyway, took off the bone whip wrapped around his body, shook it twice, and looked at his opponent vigilantly. Walter chuckled, and endless silk threads flowed out from behind him, gathering into 16 sharp spider-like spears. The spears twisted and twisted like poisonous snakes, and then shot at Scarface one after another. After dodging several attacks, it suddenly found in horror that it could not move. Countless dense silk threads wrapped around it, restricting its movements. Then, 3 spears made of silk threads pierced its body, and as blood was lost, Scarface's consciousness gradually blurred. Amon's stolen soul skill returned. He immediately materialized his soul power, condensed a bullet, and then used the air bomb to push the bullet toward Scarface's head. This is a trick that combines the materialization of soul power with the air bullet. With a real bullet, it is more lethal than a simple air bullet. However, the attack distance is limited, because once the materialized soul power leaves Amon's body, it will turn back into ordinary soul power in a short time and lose its substantial nature. Scarface's head exploded like a watermelon, with red blood and white jelly splashing everywhere. Seeing the death of their leader, the rest of the Dementors howled in fear and fled in panic. Walter's body suddenly disintegrated into strands of silk and then disappeared. The one who acted with Amon and the others was just a silk puppet of Walter from beginning to end. His real body was still a kilometer away. This is why Scarface's use of fraud and stealing had no effect. After all, silk puppets have no thoughts that can be delayed, and no soul skills that can be stolen. It even chose the wrong target, so it naturally couldn't work. After killing the leader of the Dementors, Walter's body rushed over at a very fast speed and nodded to Amon with a smile. A black soul ring slowly emerged from Scarface's body. The black halo was not dazzling, but it was so dazzling that the black-clothed youth and manas who led the way could not take their eyes away. A trace of envy and desire flashed in their eyes. A 30,000-year soul ring, even the Soul Emperor manas didn't have it. Seeing their inner desire, Walter smiled and said, "Do a good job and accumulate enough merits, and I can also help you." "Thank you, sir," the black-clothed young man and manas said in unison, looking at the soul ring that had a vague connection with him. Amon smiled. Chapter 70 The Fire Thief. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. When Amon was about to pull and absorb the soul ring, even though he knew that he would not retreat, Walter couldn't help asking, "Are you really sure you can absorb this soul ring? You should know that the 10,000-year soul ring is a qualitative change. To absorb it, you need not only a strong body, but also a strong enough spirit. Otherwise, the endless resentment of the soul beast before death will turn you into an idiot." Amon took it from the void, and a pair of monocles appeared in his hand, which was worn on his right eye. He chuckled. "It's just a little resentment. Please protect me and be alert to the surroundings." As he said, a translucent worm with star-like colors and 12 links appeared in his hand. The worm kept swimming, appearing and disappearing, as if it was constantly shuttling in the void. Walter couldn't help but look at it a few more times. It was also the first time he saw Amon's martial soul. He said with a little doubt, "Bug." Amon mobilized his soul power and pulled the black soul ring closer to him. When the distance was close enough, it suddenly shrank and wrapped around a ring of the time worm. The surging energy continued to come from the martial soul, washing Amon's body. The violent power like a broken dam caused waves of pain in the meridians, one after another. The time worm clones appeared around the time worm martial soul, dispersing the energy and always controlling it within a certain range. The resentment of the scarred soul-grabbing ghost leader before his death followed the martial soul into Amon's mind. It let out a shrill and terrifying roar, trying to shake the enemy's spirit. Suddenly, endless whispers sounded, some hoarse and low, some magnificent and vast, some dense and crazy. The resentment of the scarred face was almost instantly drowned by the whispers, and he couldn't even last for a second. Walter looked at the martial soul split body that was constantly splitting and guiding and diverting the energy and was amazed. He saw that this method would damage the quality of the final soul ring and cause a certain amount of waste, but it could indeed allow people to absorb soul rings beyond the age limit. This made him feel that it was necessary to pay more attention to some children with similar martial souls in the future. Even if the innate soul power was not high, they could continuously enhance their talents through absorption beyond the age limit. Of course, Walter had investigated Amon's background and knew that he was only level 12 or 13 when he was 12 years old. After that, he continued to show his talent until he reached the current level. At this moment, he suddenly understood why Amon was mediocre at the beginning, but was able to catch up later, because his cultivation talent was constantly improving. Although Walter's guess deviated from the truth a little, the explanation was unexpectedly reasonable, which helped Amon avoid a lot of trouble. He looked at Amon and felt a little regretful. If each soul ring in the future could be absorbed across levels like this, it would not be difficult to reach the level of a great worshipper, but this was impossible, because there were not so many high-level soul rings to waste. In his estimation, breaking through the soul sect and becoming a soul king, that is, the fifth soul ring, was Amon's last chance to improve his qualifications. 2 hours later, Amon opened his eyes and slowly calmed the soul power around him. A hint of joy appeared on his face, and he had gained another powerful soul skill. The fourth soul skill, Fire Stealer effect. You can steal a soul skill that does not exceed the sixth soul ring. The target distance cannot exceed 50 meters. It lasts for 24 hours, and the stolen person cannot use this skill. After 24 hours, the soul skill will automatically return, or Amon himself will take the initiative to return it in advance. There is only one quota for stealing. Once the stealing is successful, stealing cannot be used again within 24 hours, and the stolen soul skill can only be used once. Even if the original owner of the soul skill dies, Amon can still use this soul skill during the duration of the stealing effect. There is a possibility of failure in stealing, which is related to the level and strength of the target soul skill and Amon's own understanding of this soul skill. The more Amon knows about the soul skills he wants to steal, the greater the chance of stealing them. With full knowledge, stealing soul skills from 1 to 4 rings is almost 100% successful, while the 5th and 6th soul ring skills have a high failure rate. If the stealing fails, you can continue to launch stealing, but the soul power lost in the previous launch will not be returned. In the case of not knowing the opponent's information at all, the effect of stealing is random, and there is a high probability that the opponent's low-level soul skills will be stolen. After obtaining the 4th soul ring, in addition to the Fire Stealer skill, Amon's 1st to 3rd soul skills have a certain increase. In addition, because it is absorbed by a large margin beyond the age limit, Amon's soul power level has also risen from the original level 40 to level 45. It is not surprising that the soul power level has such a big increase. The age of the 4th soul ring should only be 5,000 years, and the soul ring of 30,000 years is a good choice for the soul emperor who is about to be promoted to soul saint. Walter saw the smile on Amon's face and said gently, "It seems that you are very satisfied with the skills you have obtained." Amon touched the bottom edge of his monocle and replied with a chuckle, "Thank you for your help. It completely meets my expectations." Mano saw that Amon absorbed the spirit ring so easily, which might be difficult for him, and his heart was in turmoil. He felt that he might have witnessed the rise of a new strong man. "Since we have achieved our goal, let's leave. The Soul-Dangling mountains are not suitable for staying for a long time. This place always gives me an indescribable sense of crisis. although I don't know where this sense of crisis comes from, and I have never heard of any particularly powerful soul beasts in the mountains. Walter said. Amon nodded. The environment here makes people's spirit feel particularly depressed. A moment before walking out of the Danghun Mountains, Amon seemed to hear a gloomy and terrifying laughter echoing in the sky. The next moment, the fog in front of him quietly dissipated. He looked back at the clear Danghun Mountains not far away without any fog. He straightened his monocle and whispered to himself, "Interesting." Walter, who was beside him, had a pale face at the moment, and fine beads of sweat were faintly oozing from his forehead. Walter's eyes were full of solemnity, and he said seriously, "Go back." Munoz and the young man in black naturally had no objections. They all silently followed Walter's somewhat hurried pace. Amon's fingers moved slightly, and several time worms fell quietly, and then he followed them. After they left, the time bugs that fell to the ground changed and finally turned into young men wearing black robes, pointed hats, and monocles on their right eyes. One of the Amons said, "The original body really likes to push dangerous jobs to us. Isn't this exciting and interesting?" Another Amon looked at the Soul-Dangling mountains with a smile on his face. The Amons adjusted their monocles in different postures, scattered, and walked towards the mountains from different directions.